We're trying to keep some variety in what we're doing, and today we're going to talk about. We're going to title it "Slave Food," and talk about the foods. And look, if we look after our own bodies, they'll look after us. And you've been working very, very closely with diet, with food, and what's good for you, what's bad for you. You know, the trouble is all the bad stuff is so easy to get hold of, and
it's so yummy as well. In fact, they put special formulas into it that make it really addictive. So yeah, it's difficult, isn't it?
It is, and I think the classic case of the most addictive thing is Pringles. You know, you take the top off and you just one after the other. It's so bad for you.
You can't start. If you start, that's it. It's all over. Yeah.
And the other thing I've noticed is sugar. Sugar's more addictive than cocaine. I mean, it's absolutely awful. Yeah. The minute you get a taste of it, your body starts craving it like nothing on earth. Since I've given up sugar, I was having an espresso the other day, and I accidentally just tore the sugar off, put it in there and stirred it, and it wasn't thinking I was talking business. And then I sipped it and I was like, whoops.
Yeah.
That was nice, but boy, my body was craving a cake to go with it and everything else.
Yeah.
Really kicked the cravings in.
I think when it first came into Europe, refined sugar was for the apothecaries, and it was kept under lock and key because they knew it was seriously addictive. Yeah.
Yeah.
But slave food sounds a bit extreme, doesn't it? Sounds like.
I think you have to wake people up or make people aware with maybe a little bit of dramatic wording to make them realise. Because look, if the mainstream media can be dramatic, we can be dramatic too.
Let's be dramatic, definitely.
Exactly.
So, yeah, I'd love to talk with you about slave food and what that means exactly.
Yeah.
So, you know, where to begin? There is definitely an agenda out there. And if we believe that the industrial agrochemical food system that has been developed since the World Wars, because in wartime we were on meat and 2 veg, and we were actually really quite healthy then.
Yep.
But then, of course, the industrial machine got to work on it. And if we think that they're out for our benefit, or, you know, out of the goodness of their hearts, they're really trying to feed the people, they're not. What they're trying to do is get a product on the shelf that's going to last and stay there a long time and not go off, and also will be formulated to make you want to buy more. So we've got to really identify these foods. And I've got some special antenna now that I've developed, and when I'm walking around the supermarkets now, I'm just like beep, 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 beep. I can't go down that aisle. I just can't. I won't buy any of it. And actually it becomes then like a defiant move. It's a defiance. I don't want that food. I don't want your food, actually. I'm not going to give you my money, and you ain't going to poison me, because that's what it is. It's poisoning, literally.
Yeah. I have a little thing that I've been watching recently. I don't watch a lot of television, but I've been watching Rich House, Poor House.
Oh, yeah.
Where rich families swap houses with poor families. So families who have a disposable income of probably £2,000 a week with a family that has probably £100 a week disposable income. They swap lives for a week. It's very interesting that the poor family generally are fairly fat. And the rich family are generally fairly slim. And it's very interesting that the first day the poor family in the rich family's house, the first thing they do is buy a takeaway. And the rich family, the first thing they do is they tend to go to look for fruit and vegetable foods because they haven't got much money. And they look for simple things like pasta, to go with it, but fruit and vegetables. And there was one rich family just walking along and just simply took an apple off the tree as they were walking along and fed the family that way. And it's a mentality thing as well. The reason people are rich is because they're careful with their money and they look after themselves. And very often the reason that, not all the reasons why some people are poor, but they become poorer because they're spending money on not very good food.
It is expensive. It can be expensive to eat well, but also you can eat well on a tight budget. I mean, what we were just saying about diets and rich man, poor man or whatever, I was just reminded of that. Do you remember that nursery rhyme? It was like Jack Sprat could eat no fat, his wife could eat no lean, and so between them both, you see, they licked the platter clean. And his wife in all the pictures was immensely fat, and he was really, really skinny. But we've been actually a bit hoodwinked about which foods are actually good for us or not, because fat is what we're made of. Apart from we're made of water, we're made of proteins, but we're largely fat. Every cell membrane and all of the insulation around your nervous system is made of fats. That myelin sheath that's around your electric workings in your body, that is the insulation. When that breaks down, you get multiple sclerosis. And they've been telling us not to eat fat. Don't eat saturated fat. It's going to give you a heart attack. And, that's called the heart diet hypothesis. And it's a hypothesis. It's not a fact. It is not at all proven scientifically when you look into the details. And, so then there's a whole industry that's born from us being missold food products, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. It's very interesting, they have very deceptive labels. It has 0% of something, or 0% of something, but it has loads of something else.
What drives me nuts is the cholesterol lowering margarine spreads, which are sold to you to lower your cholesterol. Well, I've got some things to talk about there. One, cholesterol is like the ambulance with the medics in it that goes to an area of inflammation in your body. So when your body is hurt, your body goes, send out the medics, send out the ambulance, and that's in the form of cholesterol, and the cholesterol goes to that spot and will patch up the injury and help you get better. So when you are going to the doctor for your cholesterol blood test, if you happen to stub your toe really badly or bark your shin on the way there, your cholesterol levels are going to be quite different then. So we're measuring something that is not actually a marker of heart disease, believe it or not. And the reason I can say this is because I've read Dr. Natasha's book, and there are many other writers as well who've written fabulous books all about this hypothesis. And her book's called Atherosclerosis, or Your Heart in Your Mouth, and it's all about how food will help you with high blood pressure and heart disease issues.
I had a blood test a few years ago now with my doctor here in Spain, Lourdes Peralta. She's a wonderful doctor. I've known her for a very long time, and she used to do a test on me, and then they'd take 6 samples of blood, and took about a week to come back, and she'd tell me all the foods that were good for me and all the ones that were bad for me. And that can change from summer to winter. So that there were certain foods having a reaction against me. At that particular time, pineapple, for some reason, was having a reaction against me. So she said, better off leaving that. And it was just very interesting to understand. There was me thinking, oh, that's going to be good for me. Do a bit of research into it, and then suddenly you find out that certain foods, and everybody is different. Some foods are good for you, some are bad for you. I'm just talking about the basic foods and the basic, not McDonald's and Kentucky Fried Chicken. I'm talking about real foods.
Not slave foods.
Not slave foods. No.
It's terrible, because if you haven't got a lot of money, where are you going to go to get your food? But if we can really learn to just cook from scratch, really quick and easy, then we can. You look at
I will name them, Lidl and Aldi. They in Spain, I don't know what they're like in England, but in Spain, they have incredible fruit and vegetable sections in there.
They've got quite a lot of organic stuff as well.
That's exactly right. And it's not expensive.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of people who don't live not far from the country, but you can still get it from farms. You might pay a little bit extra, but look, you're helping a farmer out.
This is where we need to go. Yeah.
And then send your kids up to the farmer and let them pick his strawberries and raspberries and blackberries and blueberries and get paid for it. So it works out cheaper in the long run. The problem is, none of you are actually doing that. My old man, he used to make me do that to pay for those sort of foods. But nowadays the kids can't be bothered.
Government policy has been such that they have swallowed up so many of the small family farms that you'll be hard pushed these days to find a pick your own strawberries and a pick your own,
Really?
berry farm. It's really shocking how government policy has encouraged large scale agriculture these years.
Well, because they're making money.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, so I was making some notes about slave food earlier on, and I just want to make sure that I kind of like get these ideas in. The reason why we don't want to be eating the slave food is because it's contaminated, and you just wouldn't believe what's in it, And when I say contaminated, I mean if it's a grain product, it's been grown on the industrial agrochemical model, which means it will be microdosing you with pesticides and herbicides and glyphosate. Now, in a healthy body, your liver, which is an amazing alchemical machine, can process those toxins. But for anyone who's got a slightly broken immune system, and when I say broken immune system, I mean your digestive system's a bit up the spout. And how many people do you know has got really, really, really good digestion?
Not many.
Not many. So yeah, we can process these toxins, but only if your gut health is like really robust. And then we could just list all the things that can damage your gut health out there. Jesus. So if you're eating foods from the industrial model, you're going to be getting pesticides and herbicides, microdosing. And then also there will be residues of hormones and things in there from the animal system. So what we need to do, as you say, is find the family farms. Go and find the family farms, support the family farms, go to the farmers markets, go to the places where you can ask the farmer, what are they doing? How are you feeding your animals? I know that sounds like a bit of a tall order, but even in London now, the farmers markets are around, you see them. There's people out there. You can go and find the stuff. You really can. And what I teach is cooking from scratch. So I'll get a chicken, and it's a chicken from a farmer rather than, a factory. And that will give us a stock pot. And then that stock pot will be feeding us for the whole of the week.
Yeah.
So I'm not buying a lot of meat, What I've got though is a stock pot. And it's like a cauldron, a magic cauldron that you just add pot herbs to it. And that in conjunction with good fats and loads of fresh fruits and vegetables, it keeps you.
When I was younger, from the age of 10, I had chicken. My father bought me 6-day-old chicken, and they were 27 pence each in those days. And I thought I was a clever businessman, so I managed to find another 6, but they were only 10 pence each. So I thought I was rather clever. The trouble was, the ones I bought were cockerels. They didn't lay eggs. But we landed up with around 10,000 chicken time I was 17, and that was my business when I was young.
Really?
Yeah, but and we used to eat our own chicken. The only time I ever felt guilty is when we ate Henny and Penny, because we knew their names. So that was a little bit sad, but they did taste nice because they'd been looked after well. They stopped laying eggs, so they had no value any look.
Why would you want to kill a little chicken if you are on a homestead? That they scratch around, they eat up all of the pests for you, they fertilize the land for you, they'll clear the weeds for you.
Yeah.
They're adorable little creatures, but a little bit like dinosaurs, they will attack each other, given half the chance. So why would you want to? And they give you eggs. It's like a win-win-win-win-win situation. But then, like you say, there comes a point where you're going to chop one of their heads off and stick it in the pot. I've done that myself. And it does. I've killed my pigs as well. And it's because you've loved them and been with them all that time and scratched their bellies and, scratched them behind the ears and fed them all the titbits and they've grunted at you. And, you have a relationship, and it is hard, but
they do taste nice though, don't they?
They're absolutely delicious. And I truly believe that we are here to husband the land and to husband these animals with love and affection and gratitude and respect. And the deal is, I'm a slave to my pigs. I go and collect all the waste from the organic shop out the back, and I sprout the beans and barley for them, and I love them to bits. Give them fresh water, take them to fresh pasture, and then at the end of the day, they give me sausages. It's like, that's the deal. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And people get very upset about that because, there's lots of veganism and vegetarianism. And I know that people say there's a sort of energetic thing that if an animal has died in a frightening circumstance, then energetically that meat will be tainted with that energy. And I can totally see that.
Makes so much sense. Well, we knew that because we had our own slaughterhouse.
Right.
So when if they were stressed, the meat would be as tough as old boots because the adrenaline gets into the meat and what have you. But
you see how the policy, how national policy has prevented people from being able to slaughter their own animals, because you cannot sell the meat if you slaughter it yourself. We slaughter our own pigs because we've got Pig Club, and people share the ownership of the pig before it actually dies, and then they can decide how it dies. But that's having to sort of circumnavigate the rulings that you cannot slaughter your own animals and sell the meat. Why should that be?
I was completely unaware of that. Mind you, I've been out of the UK for many, many years now. So
to be a small-scale farmer in the UK at the moment is extraordinarily difficult. It's fraught with regulation and the powers that be deciding what you do, not you being autonomous and sovereign with your beasts. And I've heard stories of farmers who, when they have that sad task of deciding which of the beasts is going to slaughter, when they know them all so well, they'll have a family meeting and sit down, and everyone will say, well, that one's quite old, and what about that one? And let's let that one go, and let's let Daisy go. Daisy's going to slaughter tomorrow. They'll go to the fields the next morning, and Daisy will be somehow standing apart from the others, kind of almost like she knows. And that, they've had this kind of communication that none of us can possibly understand unless you've actually lived with your beasts. I'm not saying that's possible for everyone, but only 1% of the British population is in farming, and most of that farming is massive, large scale, they're big toys, spraying chemicals all over the place. And when national policy gets behind small scale agriculture, we'll start to see a revival, a cultural revival as well.
I think that will happen once we get rid of the swamp, and that's what we're doing right now.
I totally agree. And you've got to be thankful that there's a small crew of people, a bit like me, who've given up everything. I had a house in London and bought a piece of land and started a small holding just so that we can kind of keep these traditions alive and, working with hand tools, working with very closely with small scale agriculture. Land Workers Alliance is a really awesome little organisation who encourages people to do that.
It does, but they'll do. The governments up until now have been so corrupt in trying to break down the small businesses like that. Even the amount of people who used to have allotments and stuff like that and grow all their own stuff. And
you talk to most people, and nearly all of them want a little small holding and a little place to live, a little bit of land, and we need to kind of get back to the countryside and. But do it on a really beautiful.
And the knock-on of that is you get a lovely little community because people want to come there. And I know so many people that had small holdings in the old days and always busy, always people passing by, pop in and talk to them. It wasn't always to buy stuff; it's just to see them working the land,
And that's where our culture comes from, agriculture,
Yeah, it is.
And we've kind of lost that a little bit now.
Yeah.
But back to why we don't want to be eating slave food. Is that apart from all of these residues of pesticides and herbicides and hormones and things that you don't want in your system, and the energetic stuff that we were talking about, there's also, of course, this is not so much to do with agriculture, but I think it's something we really, really need to talk about, which is it's that problem, reaction, solution thing. What's the problem? The problem is climate change. And, it's going to be very hard to do farming with, this climate change. We've got to lower the CO2 and we've got to do, it's going to get too hot and we've got to cool it down. So that's the reaction. And then the solution is what they're coming with at the moment, which is geoengineering. They're telling us about geoengineering. Have you looked into that?
Well, I've never bought into the climate change because the simple fact is if you go back 2,000, 3,000 years, the cycle, we're just in a cycle. It gets warmer, it gets cooler. Nobody was moaning like a bitch when we went through the ice age because we didn't have all the information out there. We'll go through another period where it gets really cold.
I'm totally with you. That whole climate change thing, as far as I'm concerned, is fabrication. And, it's a story that they're telling us to frighten us, to make us think that we need a solution. And the solution they're coming with is they're calling it geoengineering. I don't know if you know about it, but You can look into it. Anyone can look into it. You can look up weather modification history, and it would tell you all about stuff that's been going on since the 1880s. 1890s, all through the 1920s, 30s, you know, newspaper articles, and they've been messing with the weather for such a long time. And all of that stuff, they've been spraying us like lab rats.
Well,
I'm sorry, but they have. Such a long time. And you've got those heavy metals in your body, whether you know it or not. Everyone has got those heavy metals in their body where they've been raining down on us. And the thing is, if you eat the slave food and you got rained down on with the heavy metals, you're just heading for trouble when it comes to EMF frequencies. This is a big whole thing. So the way to get over it is to eat real, you know, what I'm teaching, timeless cookery. Lots of people are teaching it. Lots of people out there. It just means getting a pot on the stove and finding some real food, you know.
I met a pilot yesterday that was his job.
What was the spraying? Really? It's really hard to get to people to talk about it.
Yeah, he pulled me aside. Didn't want to be identified, but told me that's what his job was.
Right.
It's fascinating, you know. I knew that they were doing it, as an example, in Abu Dhabi. Where they're doing it to create rain. Yes, that's how they sell it. Yeah. It's cheaper than desalination.
Wow.
The trouble is they haven't really mastered it yet. When it rains, it chucks it down, and they have to close all the schools and the shops because they get flooded.
And then you get erosion with the soil, etc.
Yeah, you get all kinds of things.
Why can't we just let Mother Nature get on with it and do it on her own? We're so meddlesome. And
well, we've got these power crazy, corrupt, deep state cabal wankers, for the want of a better word. They've just got power crazy, and you know, after money comes power, and power corrupts, and we're seeing how much power has corrupted people.
And I can't help but think that it's actually like a depopulation exercise. I just can't help but think
that's exactly what it was. It was part of a reduction in the numbers of people on this earth, and it was Bill Gates' idea to do it with George Soros. Depopulation, reducing
Agenda 21 and Agenda 2020. Yeah. The good news is, though, that seeing what we can see and it all coming to light means that we can identify what has happened and then come with solutions, you know.
Of course.
Yeah. There's actually a lot of really amazing people and organizations that are already aware of a lot of this and doing great things. Like, a lot of people say, well, you can't feed the world on organic, you know, you can't feed the world with small scale agriculture.
Oh, you can.
Yeah, you so can. And it's really uplifting. There's an organization called grain.org. And do you know it? And they have lots of stats. So they've done a lot of research globally. And basically they've come up with this really lovely observation, and that is that all of the world's food is grown by approximately it's mainstream agriculture, industrial agriculture, and small scale farmers, and the proportion is 70% small scale farmers and only 30% industrial. And the industrial bunch use 70% of the resources, and the small scale farmers use 30% of the resources. So looking at that, it'd be really easy if I was a government official to just go, actually, let's just scrap industrial agriculture and let's just encourage small scale farmers. Well, they haven't done it yet, Charlie.
I love the way the media were trying to spin it about leaving the EU and what have you, about, we wouldn't have access to all these fruits and vegetables and what have you. Hang on a second. We've got access to perfectly good fruits and vegetables in our own country.
Right.
And what the EU has enabled people to do is have the same fruits all the year round.
Which isn't.
I don't think that's a good thing.
Yeah, me too.
I think you're better off having the right fruits and vegetables in the right seasons.
Yeah.
And when you're not getting them in the winter, there's a reason you're not getting them, because you need other foods in the winter to build up your immune system, because the weather's cold.
That's right.
And I had a phone call today from my godfather, who I absolutely adore. And he said to me, Charlie, what's going on with these spikes in America where the temperature is like 35, 40 degrees? I said, there is no spikes in the virus at all. It's just to cover up. I'd actually spoken to my ambassador friend. And he just said, no, we needed to keep people locked down because we were rescuing a lot of children in that state. I went, that just makes so much sense.
I've heard.
The reason for lockdown is for the arrests. To get down. A lot of people are very dangerous, and also when you're trying to rescue kids, you don't really want lots of people out on the streets all the time. It's a pretty sensitive time, and you want to be able to get in and get them out safely and get them out quickly. The public will become aware over the next weeks of the amount of children that have been rescued in the last month. Nothing in the mainstream media really about it at the moment, but there was 36,000 paedophiles arrested in Germany and Holland in the last 10 days.
That is good news. I'm happy it's coming to light.
And there was 700 and something on the Costa del Sol arrested in the last week. And we know very little about it. They're keeping it very, very quiet, which beggars the question: are the mainstream media involved or not?
Yeah,
they're certainly involved in the cover-up.
Yeah, right.
And if you look at the way that they protected Jimmy Savile all those years,
yeah, right.
The way that Jill Dando her life was ended very, very quickly when she was investigating them.
I was living in Fulham when that happened. I remember that well. It was quite near where I lived. Yeah.
So it doesn't surprise me that they're covering it up, but it's very interesting how people say, well, how do we know we can trust you? Because it's not coming out in the mainstream media. I said, well, the mainstream media are basically lying to you. So you won't be able to qualify anything you hear from me with them because they're not telling you the truth.
Yeah.
And the reason I'm telling you the truth is I've got no reason to lie. And if you want to know where the facts are, I'll tell you where they are. For an example, most of my facts come from the government website, the WHO website, the CDC website. They come from official sources. But they're very, very well hidden so that you can't find them. You have to ask me for the link so I can show you how to get to it, because they've started hiding it so people can't find it. And we've got a technical team that managed to dig around and find it, because they're very clever, these people, at hiding the facts.
They sort of have to tell you what's going on in a way, don't they? They have to put the information out there as part of this sort of, it's a tacit consent we give if we can find out the truth and then sit back and do nothing about it. They think, oh, well, nobody's complained about it. We can just carry on, Yeah. Yeah.
Well, the amount of people that died from COVID-19 was minuscule by comparison to normal influenza and respiratory problems for the last 5 years. The numbers were far lower from up until July the 1st than they have been for the last 5 years. Yeah. And on all the three websites, it was downgraded to the same as influenza.
Right, yeah.
4 days before we went into shutdown.
And I recently heard that on the WHO as well, it said on the World Health Organization, there was a spokesman saying wearing of masks isn't necessary, and if you are not symptomatic, if you're asymptomatic,
correct,
you're not going to be a threat to anyone, so don't worry about it. I mean, she didn't say that, don't worry about it.
The mask thing, I've done a video about myself. It's an absolute joke. It's all about silencing you. It's a symbol of shutting you up.
Yeah, right.
It's got nothing to do with the virus, because the reality is if you look at the box, it states it right across the box, this would not stop coronavirus COVID-19.
Do you mean the writing on the side of the packaging?
Side of the packaging, yeah. But that's a very good idea if you're trying to rob a bank.
Right. On that theme of telegraphing, as they say, as in, telling you what's going to happen before it happens, and if you don't do anything about it, they just take it as tacit agreement. I was watching a film called Cloud Atlas.
Okay.
I don't know if you've seen it. It was made in 2012. It's got starring Tom Hanks and Halle Berry. It's a cyclical story it's reincarnation themed and spans from the 1880s right into the future. And basically, one of the scenes in it, well, in the future, our heroine, who becomes an icon of freedom, breaks loose from McDonald's style job that she has, where basically it looks like all the people working in the McDonald's are cloned dollies, and she breaks free and realizes that they are being, when they're chosen to go to a place, and actually they're slaughtered there, and it's like a human farm.
Wow.
And you see scenes of human carcasses hanging. I was watching that and just thinking about this telegraphing thing and thinking about some of the horrendous things that have come to light. And it just blew my mind. And I was like, rah, are we being farmed? It felt like that's, something.
Yeah, well, the way that our lives have been run for the last 400 years by the cabal, by the deep state, they're so corrupt. I was learning things yesterday from somebody who's a very well-read Spanish gentleman who's investigated. I had no idea that when the Americans came into Spain, 36,000 of them, military guys in plain clothes, they asked the Guardia Civil, the head of the police here, to stand down while they arrested some very bad people. What the Guardia Civil didn't realise is that a lot of their own people were going to be arrested.
Right.
The Guardia Civil, along with the government of this country, have been running the drug scene in Spain for many, many years. So they're part of the cabal. Right. So they asked them to stand down and keep out of the way while they went and picked them up. Right. So they were I don't think they were very happy about that.
And all of this drug selling, and it comes from the top, doesn't it?
From the very top.
They flood the people with the drugs because it's a war on human consciousness, isn't it?
Yep.
It's the same as the food. The slave food is to help with the war on human consciousness. If you engage with their slave food, if you imbibe their slave food, you're kind of tacitly agreeing to be a slave, Yeah. Makes it much easier when you get that paradigm shift to just say, I ain't touching your slave food, actually. You can eat it. Go on.
I tried something last night that I'd never tried before. Kangen water.
Oh, a friend of mine has got one of those, makes Kangen water.
Yeah, the lady whose business it is lives out here.
Right.
She had a big bottle of it, and I said, let me try something, girl. It's absolutely beautiful. And hers is the highest level, alkaline water. So if you're having alkaline water and your body's in an alkaline state, guess what? You can't get cancer.
So I hear, yeah.
And I was corrected yesterday by somebody who's been watching what we're saying you can't say you've got a cure for cancer, otherwise they'll come after you.
Yeah.
And I mean, because you're going to threaten their business. But if you can say you can prevent people from getting it, there's nothing they can do.
Yeah.
But the reality is we became very angry yesterday because we realised that cancer research and all of that have taken £90 billion from the British public and the European public in charity money over the last 40 years. And if they'd been honest, they could have solved it for probably 10 million.
Right.
And the question is, where's all that money gone? Where's it gone? Because the research, we've already done. I've done enough research in the last 14 weeks to find out all the ways that you can prevent it, and if you've got it, how you can reduce it, end it. I'm not allowed to say cure it, but get over it.
Yeah, yeah. And a big part of that healing is ensuring that your gut health is in tip-top condition. And here's the thing, because a lot of people are saying, I get a lot of stick because I'm talking about eating animal products, but I'm only wanting people to try and source animal products from a regenerative agricultural model. It's those fats from the animal kingdom that have the most amazing healing qualities, and mostly people's digestion is shot because of antibiotics or taking painkillers or having a bug and then not healing from it properly, so the opportunistic pathogenic bacteria take a hold in the gut microbiome, and then it's really difficult to redress the balance because we've kind of forgotten how to eat. Back in the day we would have had our cheeses and our meats and everything, and we would have never eaten them without a pickle or a relish.
That's right.
A relish, a pickle, some kind of ferment, because all of our summer vegetables would have been preserved for the winter.
That's right.
Making, so sauerkraut, kimchi, pickles, all of those, but live, not pasteurized in a jar.
Yeah.
That's slave food. You want real ferments, and that's when you're going to start recolonizing the gut. And clotted cream and, beautiful fermented dairy. We never would be eating dairy really unfermented back in the day. So what we need to do is just kind of look back to how we used to do it and then revive those cultures. Literally, they are our cultures. Cultivating our microbiome should be everyone's number one priority, because if you need to, if you intend to get these heavy metals out of your system that everyone's got and purge yourself of these residues. I mean, I used to have Findus crispy pancakes in the 70s, and you know, I've had Mickey D, and I've had all sorts of nonsense when I was in my 20s, kebabs and I don't know what, when I was at drama school, necking tenants extra and, you know, having kebabs on the way home. I've been there, I've done it. But then I had a health crisis, and then my children were ill, and then I was like, okay, what am I doing wrong here? And now I've learned, and now, it's not difficult to eat right. It's really not, and it's delicious. I mean, look, I've got my chicken nuggets here. Look, I just made these this morning. They're probably yummy chicken nuggets with like a crispy coating. They've been deep fried. They're yummy, but it's saturated fat. It's coconut and spices, and it's organic chicken. You can have, you know, those yummy foods, satisfying, rich, delicious. You just got to watch out where they come from.
Also, like, all this washing of your hands is...
Oh, don't get me started. That's dangerous.
You know, recycling the air with a mask breaks down your immune system. I mean, destroys your immune system because you're recycling it and not getting enough oxygen into your body. Washing your hands, you need a bit of dirt on there to build up your immune system. You're
so right, Charlie. You know, our skin is actually, it's an organ, and it's covered with its very own microbiome. So using a lot of, lots of soap and lots of scented things is actually very damaging for your skin. And when you're on the GAPS protocol, which is what I teach, we really make people look at their body care products, because they're mostly petroleum based, and they're mostly heavily scented, and all of these just get soaked straight into your skin and then add to the toxic burden of all the other things we've just been talking about. So you've got to really be careful with your skin. I just use lard. I just like rubbing the lard and the coconut oil with a little bit of lavender oil. Lavender oil can go straight onto your skin undiluted, even onto a burn. I've been using lavender oil. And I just use all the saturated fats, the goose fat, the whatever, you know.
When I was a teenager, I had a very spotty face, very spotty. And they just kept coming back. And I tried all these Clearasil, different things. Nothing worked. And I talked to an old lady who said to me, stop putting all that shit on your face. Just wash it with water. And from 18 years old until 60 years old, the only soap I put on my face is when I'm shaving.
Right.
I never ever wash my face with soap. It's just water. Wash my face with water, and just when I wet shave, so just put the gel on and then just shave it all off. I've gone on the days where I use any form of soap on my face at all. And the minute I started doing that, within 10 days, all my spots had gone.
How interesting! Yeah.
Just by washing with water.
I quite often put cream on as well. When I say cream, I literally mean 24-hour fermented dairy. So double cream in a little yogurt making machine, which is basically just a little heated element, you know, keeps it at 36 degrees blood temperature for 24 hours. When we ferment our dairy like that, it takes out all the lactose and breaks down the casein. So it's very difficult to be lactose intolerant, which a lot of people go, I can't take dairy, I'm lactose intolerant, you know. But that's because we've pasteurized the milk all these years, and takes the enzymes out that helps you digest the dairy in the first place. And of course, anyway. So using just cream on your skin, and then you get this lovely lactobacillus layer on your skin as well. And it's the good guys, the lactobacillus, that are going to eat the bad guys. And that's the same in your guts. When you've got a really good microbiome, it's those good guys that are going to keep the bad guys in check. So that's what we need to be looking at with this whole mask wearing, hand washing thing, is we need to be cultivating a good terrain of healthy bacteria all over our skin, inside, in our orifices, all over inside our guts, because it's the good guys that are actually going to nail the bad guys. We're supposed to be getting viruses and bacteria raining down on us all the time. That's why we have barn dances where we all like dance around and, you know, hug each other and get hot and sweaty and kick up the dirt. You know, we're supposed to have all these germs. We're built to take on germs, and that's what gives us a strong immune system. And those chopping boards they have that are antibacterial, really dangerous, antibacterial chopping boards. No,
we need bacteria.
Get a nice wooden chopping board,
Yeah.
and then rub salt and garlic into it, you know, and give it a wash down with the kettle with the hot water. Leave it out in the sun so that the sun sterilizes it. You know, don't be using any products on it or anything. Just food. Food is medicine, you know. Those antibacterial...
good bacteria, or good things and bad things, like you were just saying there, is the same as our politics, really, isn't it, right now?
Yeah.
Exactly the same. The good guys are about to smash the granny out of the bad guys, thank goodness.
Yay!
Yeah.
Yeah, thank heavens.
But look, our immune system, if we look after it, is far better than any vaccine, any drugs will ever be. You know, when you think about we're in the 21st century and you can't make a robot to heal itself.
Right.
And, you know, our body, we have an amazing body. If we look after it, it'll look after us.
That's what I tell everyone. I'm just like, you are an amazing being with unbelievable regenerative powers, and you just need to nourish and cleanse. And so that means getting the right building blocks in, and then the eating things in the right order as well, you know, and then your body can do everything it needs. And if you do have a bit of an attack, you know, a gallbladder attack, or your liver having a bit of a, that's can actually be a cleanse. That doesn't necessarily mean that you're failing and you need to go to the hospital and get, it can just mean that you need 2 days in bed, or you need a hot salt bath, or you need a massage, or you need, people are a bit scared of these health crises we go through when we're doing our healing. Like sometimes if you've got the flu, you need to just lie down, submit, take some lemon and honey, relax. It's your body doing its thing,
If you want to have a bit of fun and realise how good our bodies are, on Christmas Day, everything you eat, also keep a bucket and put exactly what you eat into a bucket as well. And at the end of Christmas Day, look what's in that bucket and see how good your body is at getting. And then you look at what's in that bucket and go, really? Is that what I put in my body today? And then I wonder why I'm feeling fat and heavy.
Right.
That includes going out for a beer before Christmas dinner. Do you see what's in that bucket? It'd actually blow your mind what you actually put into your body on Christmas
We
Day.
didn't do Christmas this year. We cancelled it last year, 2019 to 2020. We said, let's do I was going through my GAPS training. I've been teaching this for 10 years, but I did a formal training, so I'm now officially a GAPS coach. GAPS stands for Gut and Psychology Syndrome, because of the gut-brain connection.
Yeah.
So if you get your gut health right, then anxieties will melt away, depression will be going, it can deal with schizophrenia, bipolar, all sorts of really chronic health, mental health issues, and ADHD and autism and all sorts of things it can help with. I lost my thread now. We didn't eat Christmas dinner. That's right. We didn't eat Christmas dinner. We just started our GAPS protocol, and basically we had soups and stews. I think we had chicken nuggets actually for our Christmas dinner. So it was nourishing and lovely. But after 3 days, all of us had a kind of little health crisis. We got worse before we got better.
Yeah.
And then when we came out of that little low, we were just twice as good as we had been before we started. It was a really lovely time, actually. I really enjoyed Christmas last year. Not doing Christmas. We didn't do Christmas. We just ate really beautifully and did our own thing. We were just peaceful and downtime. That time of year should be about being peaceful and quiet and introverted. The winter solstice,
Yeah.
And we've souped it up into this hyper kind of like frenzy of everyone to get together, family, everyone gets really anxious. And, your gut health will always suffer if you're anxious or in fear.
Totally.
Which is where a lot of us are.
Very, very important that we learn through this difficult period that we're going through. Because when you go through anything in life, if you come out of it the other end without learning anything, it's a waste of time.
Isn't
if you
it?
can learn something from the absolute nonsense that we're going through, such as looking after your body. I haven't had influenza for probably 15 years. I just don't get ill.
That's really impressive, Charlie. And that's last time I spoke to you, you said that you've pretty much abused your body.
Nothing could have survived in my body with what I put through in my body. I mean, it was mental. When I first met my wife and gave up from partying sort of 7 to 8 nights a week, there was a bit of a come down. Let's put it that way, rather than being influenza. I would sort of put it down as a man flu thing, but it was more just my body just adapting to normality from being out at least 7 nights a week. When I say out, I mean out, not just out. So going out straight from work and arriving home at 4 or 5 in the morning.
Whoa, how do you do it? I don't know.
7 nights a week. Yeah, our body's an amazing thing. And then with all the abuse that we had, but no, I'm very grateful for a wife that's been looking after me.
And also, though, Charlie, I mean, I don't know how old you are, but
60.
Okay, so you probably grew up in a time when actually food was relatively unpolluted, and you probably had you had a body that got built on a good foundation, and therefore you've got a fairly good flora and
farming family.
Exactly. Yeah. Brilliant.
Yeah.
But these days, the little kids that are being born these days are a sort of accumulation of toxins, you know.
Yeah.
And I found this out when I was just training, that mammals, generally speaking, mammals will actually get rid of toxins via a fetus. So, I mean, this also explains, I think, why we have so many miscarriages these days, because a lot of fetuses are actually so toxic, you know.
Yeah.
That might be a consolation to some people, that they think, okay, I miscarried, but maybe my next one, I'm cleansed now, and maybe my next one will be healthier as a result, because so many children are coming out already. They measure the number of chemicals there are in the blood, in the umbilical cord.
Wow.
And it's shocking. It's shocking. The glyphosate, the aspartame, however you pronounce it, I don't know. It's really shocking. So if you think you don't need to detox, I could just say, just think again. Everybody needs to detox, and we need to be thinking about detoxing all the time, as in every plate of food that you have in front of you needs to be working either towards nourishing you or cleansing you. And if it isn't, I tell you what will happen is you'll just slowly be winding down into this kind of slave mentality where your brain doesn't work properly. You can't actually have a decent cognitive function if you haven't been nourished and cleansed properly. And that's where this war on consciousness is apparent, you know, because everyone's getting sluggish and brain foggy, and, you know, Alzheimer's and dementia's on the rise. And it's because of heavy metals, basically. Heavy metals and toxic gut. So that means your gut flora is out of whack and you need to readjust it, you know. And we know how to do it. And this stuff should be being taught at schools. Can't work out why it isn't.
You've just nailed it there, Emma, because there's so many things that we should be being taught at schools. Children at school should be being taught about how to look after their bodies, and they're not.
Primarily, yes.
And they're being forced to have vaccines at schools rather than being taught how to let your body fight all these things. That would be a far better education, but the government has an agenda to make money out of us. So, yeah. Well, it's been an absolute pleasure again, Emma, talking to you. And I'll put the link for your website on here too, so that people can.
Thanks. We're just starting a new course actually on the 26th. So it's an online thing, and people can just join online. It's a live Zoom, and I do a bit of chop it up and chuck it in cooking and just take you through the whole of the GAPS protocol. It's a 3-month thing, so it's once a week for 3 months, and you can watch it later. You don't have to join it live. You can watch it later and be in a support group. But 3 months is about a good time to get new habits into your kitchen. You know, you can't expect it just overnight to happen.
Exactly.
You've got to put a little bit of work in. You know, if you do already cook a little bit, I can just give you some like really top tips for information and motivation to transform using food as medicine. So yeah, go and check it out. It's at timelesscookery.com.
Timeless Cookery.
Yeah, Timeless Cookery.
All right, Emma. Thank you very, very much indeed.
Mwah.
Been an absolute pleasure having you on here again today.
Thank you so much. Bye, Charlie.
Hi, it's Justin, and I hope you're enjoying my dad's videos. Make sure to share this video with family and friends, like and subscribe, and turn on post notifications so you get notified for all my dad's new videos. My social media will be tagged down below so you can follow it, and just remember, Jesus loves you.